Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service and jbiztechphilly.com.
Well, you know, Rabbi, we like to have people from the law enforcement community and the elected officials in the political government world, and we got that all wrapped into one with Arnold Proskin, our guest here today. Arnie, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Mark, thank you, Rabbi. Thank you for having me.
This must be a Jewish with two for the price of one over here. You got
He was district attorney in the 60s. He was the county judge, and he was also an assemblyman into the early 80s. So
now
and that's where when I
assemblyman into the early 90s.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, maybe you started in the early 80s.
My problem was, Mark, I couldn't hold a job.
That's well. So I had when I first started reporting at the Capitol, he was the assemblyman. He would always come out. He would always treat me courteously. It was amazing. I mean, because here I wasn't even 20 years old, and he was coming out and talking to me, and I was so impressed. And then he stopped aging, and I aged, and he's just.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for helping my career. I do appreciate that. So
I also go back. I have a picture. I recently just was looking through all my old pictures, and when you were assemblyman, took my kids, and now they're grown up, and sat them by the seat. There was for a child, for any person to sit at the seat of the assemblyman. It's made there, and we.
Rabbi, let me tell you something. I used to bring kids, when I was a judge, I used to bring kids from school. I used to go visit the schools. In the assembly, as you just said, people would come in, I'd go around. They don't do that anymore, and they should. I have people come up to me now, twice as tall as I am, and say, Mr. Proskin, I remember you were in my class when I was in the 8th grade. I'd look up and say, hey. But no, it really means something to kids to be able to, they should be able to do that.
Well, I get Jewish schools, leaders of Jewish schools from New York City calling me up now because I'm giving the tours and I'm getting them into the assembly and the Senate sitting. The Senate won't let you sit in the chairs, but the assembly, they let you sit in the chairs, the people's house. And as long as you don't open up the drawers in the assemblyman's desks, you're fine, you could sit there. But I bring them in, and I'm doing the tours. I mean, as a favor, not as a job.
I know. It's fantastic. It does your heart well to see the kids going to be part of the whole situation.
Yes, it does. So when you were elected DA first and then judge, or you were judge first?
I was elected DA. When I was elected DA in 1968, I was the first Republican to ever beat the machine. 50 years they hadn't had a Republican win. And it's really crazy. And I know the reason I won. I was from downtown Albany. It was a very strong Jewish population, and they moved out. And then it was an Italian population there. And I was their kid. They all knew me. In fact, I was born Jewish, Orthodox, everything else. But then most of the Jewish families got money. They moved out of there. My father passed away when I was 12 years old, so my mother still worked. And I have as many friends who were Italian than as I do Jewish, and they all voted for me. Well, I was their guy. They didn't care what O'Connell had to say.
That must have been tough for you, having your father pass at age 12.
Oh, God, it was
because
terrible.
Your bar mitzvah was the next year.
My father died in October. My bar mitzvah was in April. It was a horror show,
Then you still went through with the bar mitzvah in his memory, I guess.
Oh, yes, and they had me daven. I led the davening at the time and everything else, and it was horrible. It was just like, gosh, it shouldn't happen.
And no, it shouldn't. And you
was very, very young, and it happened.
Was it a heart attack or?
Well, in those, that was a lot of things happened like that. Yeah. Like now, they probably could have done things to fix you, but back in those days, they couldn't.
And they had code words back then for things. So anyway, I just wanted to. You grew up on the South End.
Yes.
And there were like 3 or 4 Orthodox synagogues back then.
Within 2 blocks of each other.
Yeah, there was like a wave every 20 years. In the late 1800s.
But Mark, these 3 synagogues were all loaded.
Yes.
They were busy, they had big populations.
Yes.
And as I said, there were Catholic churches, there were about 3 or 4 in the whole same district. They were all loaded up. It was amazing in those days.
There's a long-standing joke. It wasn't told by Joan Rivers, but anyway, there's a reporter that goes to a desert island and sees one guy on the desert island, and the guy says, "Oh, let me show you around." And he's like, okay, so here's the coconuts, here's this, here's that, and this is my home, and this is the building that's my synagogue. And the reporter says, well, what's this building then? He says, this is my other synagogue. Well, why do you have two? This is the shul I go to, and this is the shul I don't go to, and every Jew needs a shul they don't go to.
You know, on the other hand, on
So-
a positive note,
So on
you know, I think
that is
the
positive.
the decline of Jewish life, I think, is just you hit the nail on the head. It's just, you know, of course, I live in Delmar, but you know, it's suburban. The Jewish people are mainly, they're not in the inner city. They're in the suburbias, wherever they are. And they don't have those smells, the sounds. I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about philosophy. Right. It's just the culture, you know, that, like that. When you were there, you just felt being Jewish.
That was it. Well, you could walk to shul on Shabbos. There's no problem. You're like half a block away. It's very easy to walk to shul.
Yeah. There's bakeries. There's
all
kinds
we had,
of
we had all
things
kinds
now.
of Jewish bakeries on Pearl Street.
Butchers.
It was amazing. Oh,
So you
kosher
felt
butcher shops,
being
of course.
Jewish. Now a kid grows up in suburbs, doesn't have that feeling anymore.
So, you know, and one of the synagogues, Beth Jacob, was sold in 1964 to a church that kept everything in pristine condition that was there. So it looks like a synagogue from way back when. In fact, upstairs where the women sat, there was still a little brass emblem with her name, S. Lipman. They still left on it because you bought a seat. That was it. You know, they gave you a brass nameplate. You know, and it's a real throwback. But the family just left it the way they found it, and now they moved out to another synagogue, another church that they built, and this building is somewhat vacant. So, you know, we'll see what we could do in terms of bringing that stained glass back into the Jewish community.
I mean, back to your career, the DA. I mean. It's interesting. I mean, were you before Sal Greenberg or right before?
Oh, no, I was before Sal, no.
I'm only here 25
Rabbi, let me tell you
years.
something. When I got elected, there were hits out on me. I mean,
Really?
literally, they wanted to kill me.
Really?
Literally wanted to kill me.
What, the gangsters, you mean?
No, I mean the cops.
Really?
Everybody was, it was, Albany County was the more corrupt than Chicago ever was.
I'm from Chicago.
It was the most, that's why I said that. It's absolutely amazing. If you could buy a pen in a 5 and 10 cent store for 50 cents, they would buy a truckload for $10 a piece so they could whack up the money. That's what they're doing.
Right.
They used to pay to vote. I mean, I remember as a little boy, I remember walking down with my mother, $5. Yeah, they give her $5 to vote their way. And it was really, really horrible. And the police, I'll talk about the police and I'll talk about the sheriffs. They were all, was just politically corrupt. Now, Albany County has the best one of the best sheriff's department in the whole state of New York. And our police department is the same. Because all of a sudden we got in there, then they went into civil service and they got all this stuff behind them. And, you know, it makes me feel good that I was, because see, in those days, the DA, if you did something wrong, them didn't like you, they'll start talking about indicting you and all kinds of things. But when I went in, I went in honestly, I said, look, if you do something wrong, I don't care whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or what are you, I'm going to go after you. If you don't do anything wrong, I'm not going to do a thing. And that's basically, and the whole system changed. Sal came in when I ran for county judge and I went on the bench, and it's very, very funny. Sal knew me since I was a baby. Sal's still kicking, you know.
He's 90 plus years old.
That's right.
You're not.
His father was, no, not yet. His father was like 102, 103. Thank God he lived a wonderful life up till a year before he died. This is not funny. He was in the home, but he used to chase the women around. And Sal, thank God, is just in such wonderful shape.
Yes.
But when Sal got elected, even though he knew me since I was a little boy, I said to my wife, uh-oh, hang on, because if he's going to be like them, he's going to try to go after me. Sal went in there, one of the first speeches he made was what a wonderful DA Arnold Proskin was in Albany.
Really?
I mean, he didn't care about, he played it straight and he kept the thing going straight down the line.
How long did you serve as DA? One term?
Well, the first, no, 66, I was elected in 68, re-elected in 71, and it was in 76 when I went on the bench.
Okay, so you served 2 terms, and that's...
No, not 2 full terms, no.
Right, but you were still there where you had to run for re-election.
That's oh yes,
You
I
had
did.
a re-election, which is...
Yeah, I ran for re-election in 71,
Right,
and
which is-
ironically, I won that election with the numbers the Democrats used to have when they ran against everybody else.
You know.
And the people just saw what was happening, and I mean,
But you were on a special ticket in '68 also. I mean, you were maybe because there was a Republican congressman, a Republican assemblyman, a Republican senator. I mean, that was like a heyday.
but nobody carried Albany County but me.
But what was
Albany
the
County. Everybody, see, when you're
assembly
in the assembly
districts?
or the Senate, things like this, you have part of Albany and part of Rensselaer, part of Albany, part
Yeah.
of Saratoga, whatever it's going to be.
But so the Senate district wasn't like all of Albany County. Like
Oh, no.
they
No,
had
I was
for
the
a
only
long
one
time?
who carried Albany County,
countywide.
yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying that when I was the executive director of the Albany County Republican Committee for 2.5 years, and
I
Fred
remember.
Field was the county chairman for a brief time. And Fred Field was 30 years as the town supervisor in column
That's
8.
right.
So he said, you know what? I remember 1968. We had, I don't even remember their names now, but they were alive.
Dan Button was the congressman.
right.
And
Ed something.
I don't remember.
No.
Doesn't matter. But
But-
see, the
yeah.
point is that
But we had a reunion, and
Yeah.
there was one guy who passed away, but his wife came, and the guy who was state senator, I think, was still alive, or maybe it was the assemblyman who was still alive.
Well-
But either way, I mean, we had this reunion, but it was like 1998, so we had a 30-year reunion. We didn't get a Republican elected in 30
No,
years,
I
and that
know,
was
I know.
since then. But '68
But
was a
I
special
gotta tell you
year for
something, Mark.
Republicans.
the Democratic Party
Yes.
is not the corrupt party it was then either.
The Democratic Party now.
Of course, yes.
Right, is not
I mean,
the corrupt party that it
do
was
they
then, right.
control Albany County? Yes. Are they corrupt? No.
Right.
They run the county. Hey, listen, they run the place, and I don't think maybe like in anything else, somebody could be, but
I
it's
don't think
not
they
a
would know how
corrupt
to be
machine.
corrupt and get away with it,
Well-
But I remember in 1976, Rastus Corning endorsed Jimmy Carter for president. He was one of the first big city mayors to endorse for president.
Yeah.
So Carter came up from Plains, Georgia to Albany.
I remember that. Yeah.
And he said, thank you very much for the endorsement. And Erastus says, I just don't want to be a name on your stationery. I want to really help you. He said, okay, give me the list of all the enrolled Democrats in the city of Albany. So Erastus opens up his bottom drawer of his desk, takes out the Albany City phone book and says, here.
Really?
See, right
And that
now,
was
what
the
you
enrolled-
he's
that was
100% right. Right now, you push the button on the computer and they spit them out. That's
But
all
he
there
has
is
the
to
city
it.
phone book, and that was all the enrolled Democrats,
know.
and that was it. That was.
No, that's right.
And it was-
Orestes Corning, by the way, even though he was on, he was the mayor, he was a real classy guy, though. He really, really was. Was he part of the machine? Of course he was.
Yeah.
But he was really
I mean, he
good.
would pick up his phone at the office and be
very nice
without
guy.
a secretary transferring.
I would
him,
see
and-
him. I would see him at functions, and he'd always make sure he'd say hello. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was really a good guy.
What was your biggest case as DA? Do you remember having a special case that stood out from all the others?
Yeah, well, I tried the last murder case, but the one that was
Tell me about that.
the guy was killed up in the palace. But the best case, I think, was when we had an investigation of the Albany County Jail, and they all thought that they were going to go to jail. Albany County Jail in those days, you put a prisoner in, door's supposed to be locked. Guess what? The locks didn't work half the time. It was unbelievably bad. It was like they just never did anything up there. So we had a grand jury investigation, and what happened was,
Was George Infante?
I
the
didn't want, no,
sheriff?
it was
No.
before George Infante. He was like my godfather.
Well,
when
I
he
just
came
thought
in.
George was there forever.
George
I just thought
Infante
he
is my dear friend.
I
He's
thought
like
he was
my
as old as
godfather.
Methuselah, but anyway.
No, he was a great guy. No, it was before him.
Okay.
And what happened was the people there thought they were all going to get indicted, the captains and stuff. And it happens, I'll mention a name, Bob Signoracci. You
Sure.
remember him? Yeah. He's one of my closest friends. His father and grandfather worked there, and I didn't know them at all. But I didn't want to indict anybody. I just wanted to clean the jail up, so I had a grand jury report. Well, subsequent to that, the Signoraccis, they couldn't believe they weren't indicted, and the family, really wonderful, wonderful people. But they cleaned the jail up after that.
Great.
The grand jury said, you got to do this, 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 and this, and guess what? The jail is fine. The jail runs very well now, and again, right now, it's considered one of the tops in the
Well,
state
and
also.
they have new sections now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Than what they had before.
Oh, the jail is
So-
fantastic.
So it's a little
but in
different.
those days, you see,
structurally
in
different.
those days, the machine wanted to spend money to stuff in their pocket. That's
Right.
all. They didn't want to spend it. Give me the money. I'll take care of it.
Right.
But it changed. It's all changed.
Okay, so that's your best DA story. What about your best county judge story? Do you have a favorite?
Well, I can't say favorites. There was a lot of them going in.
I said it, not
Huh?
you. I said favorite, not you.
I know you. I heard you say favorite. No, it was good. Being county judge is a very interesting thing. If I had stayed,
That's a 10-year term, right?
yes. But if I had stayed, I'm sure I probably would have been Supreme Court, whatever it was going to be. I didn't want to. I really didn't. It was. I think I was too young when I got in there, perhaps.
How old were you?
35, something like that. I just made it over the top when I got
So
elected.
with DA, you were in your 20s when you were DA?
I was just 30.
Wow.
And no way you're not a young kid. You know, they want to do everything. But no, it's I look back and not to brag or anything, but I did very well in law school, and my wife and I wanted to come back here. We were married at the time. We wanted to come back to Albany. Our families were here. I had some big offers of jobs down in New York City and in Boston, and I'm sure if I took them, I'd have so much money. I'd be buying the station from them here, whatever you want. No, seriously. And you know something? If I had to do it again, I went with a nice firm when I got out. And in those days, by the way, the big firms in Albany, they wouldn't hire a Jew.
Really?
Oh boy, they were discriminatory. I was the first Jew hired in this one particular firm. And then what happened was, I had this opportunity to do that. And if I had to do it over again, I would do the same thing, even though I'm sure it cost me a lot of money. I mean, because being with a big firm, I would have made mega bucks.
And then you were in the assembly. When did you first get elected in the assembly?
1984.
Okay.
1984.
Well, that was
No,
the election?
yeah, 84 is when I got
was
elected.
82, wasn't it?
No.
No, 84.
No, 84,
Who
and
did
then
you
my
succeed?
first year was January 185.
Who was your predecessor?
Actually, Fred Field was in there before me.
Okay.
And he ran for something else, I believe, and then I ran for that.
Maybe he ran for supervisor. And
Yeah, well, what happened was that, by the time that happened, okay, you could win a race if you run hard enough, you do the right things. And I went there, and I enjoyed being in the assembly. Ironically, I probably shouldn't say this on television, but my best friends turned out to be the other side. I mean, remember when I got out of the assembly, how the ultra-conservatives went after me? They didn't like me. They probably didn't like me because I was Jewish. That was the first part. But that's something else. But like guys like Shelley Silver, he's still one of my close friends.
is he? Okay.
I mean, he's the head of it.
Yeah,
And,
sure.
something.
But Stanley
to me,
Fink
it
was the
doesn't matter.
speaker at the time?
Democrat, Republican doesn't mean a thing. If you're running and I like you, I don't care what your party is. I'll vote for you.
Stanley Fink was the speaker of the
Stanley
assembly
Fink
at the
was
time?
there. Oh yes.
Okay.
And then Mel Miller came
Right.
later.
Saul Weprin
Yes.
after that.
But it's a little interesting because you are a Republican and the assembly is, it's totally Democratic. Some people say, well, why would you go into a situation like that, like being an underdog, or they say we have so many politicians that actually come on our show, and the Republicans of the assembly even now, and they kind of express their frustration and being.
I got
outvoted all
along
the time.
with the people over there. I respected them, and we had mutual respect, I think. I didn't care what the Democrat. I had a lot of times. Dick Connors, you remember that name? Sure. He was a wonderful, wonderful guy. Dick Connors was part of the O'Connell machine. He was the only one that didn't want to kill me, I think. He treated me with respect. He was a wonderful guy. He was in the assembly with me. And Dick, I said a wonderful guy, I mean that.
Yeah, his son's Michael Connors, the county controller.
That's right. Well, Dick and I are friends. We're friends. And I used to be like his free lawyer in the assembly, helping him with some of these bills. That's where we were. And I'll never forget when he left, when he was leaving, I made a speech. They still talk about it down there. But the end of my speech was, when I grow up, I want to be an assemblyman like Dick Connors. And he was a wonderful, wonderful
Well, I worked
man.
for an assemblyman, Joel Miller, who was very much like you, out of your mold, where he would reach over the aisle, and he was very much in, but he was a Republican, but he got along, and he was a dentist, and he really gave these passionate speeches about the medical field, and he was very
Mark, that's the way
knowledgeable.
it should be.
Yeah, but
I mean, you're there not to say Republican, Democrat, or whatever it's going to
but back then in
be.
the 80s, there was a different temperament. There was people
yeah.
getting, collegial. You'd have card games afterwards, after session, where
Tell me about it.
you'd play cards.
Every
and-
Tuesday, we'd be in Joe Lento's office and have
That's
coffee.
right.
And
Yeah, a little
Whatever.
extra Irish
Whatever.
coffee, yeah. But they had but it was a very It was a very collegial atmosphere.
Yes.
You know, you could fight on the floor and in conference or whatever, but then when you left, you went to, you know, your separate corners. You became friends and you walked
When you
out
do it
arm
with
in
courtesy
arm.
also.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't happen
I mean, I
that
got
way.
bills passed in there, and
Aren't
you know,
you-
they're all, you know, Democrats are overwhelming, of
Yeah.
course. But you know, I'd sell my idea and everything else, and all of a sudden they could pass a bill.
Aren't you amazed that there are so many people since 83 or 85 that have been indicted and left under a cloud? And doesn't it make you sick?
It's make me sick. It's better than
There were
amazed.
43.
It's terrible.
43
It's
bad
terrible.
legislative apples that I've, you know.
Yeah, well, some of them were friends of mine, and then I've lost a lot of friends of mine who were over there. And I'm not going to go into names or anything else, but it really does make
No,
you
leave
sick.
that to me.
It really, really makes you sick. It does.
What it does. And now they got 10 open seats or 12 open seats in the assembly, and that's all going to be filled this year. And now hopefully next year we'll have a fresh start, and maybe, you know, we won't find people bugging, each assemblyman bugging each other. And
Well,
then,
you know,
I mean, bug where they put a listening device. I
Mark,
don't mean nudging
Shelley
you.
is running a good ship. He's ahead of the whole thing. I know they tried to nail him for a few things, everything like that. Shelley's as honest as the day is long.
Yeah, but he doesn't disclose who his clients are for Lux and
He's
for
a
his law
partner
firm.
in Whites and Luxembourg.
Whites in Luxembourg, but he won't disclose who their clients
There's
are. How
about,
does
they
he
best
know
because
whether
they have
there's-
about 3,000 clients, and they're all people who died from asbestos and things like that. That's all Whites and Luxembourg does.
Yeah, but why doesn't he at least come clean with why? I mean, it's just the fact he doesn't talk about it that gives a cloud of suspicion.
Mark,
as
if you
to-
said to me, who are your clients, I say, you're my client. Someone says, you represent Mark? None of your business. I can't tell you that. It's confidential.
But now they have this financial disclosures, and you have to, you know, now they want everyone to say who.
No, I don't think you have to say who your clients are. No.
Well, you know, but that's what the good gurus, the good government groups want.
Yeah,
to
they
have.
like to have it, but you
Yes,
can't.
for conflict of interest purposes.
Well, because there's an ethical consideration. If the rabbi's talking to me as his attorney, or I'm talking to the rabbi,
Right, that's right.
It's confidential. He can't tell what I say, and I can't tell what
And
he
that-
says.
They're not asking that. They're asking just for the name.
But it's the
of-
same thing. You can't give that information.
Okay.
Because, as I said, I know Whites in Luxembourg, and they
Yeah.
have thousands and thousands of cases, asbestos cases, where some poor guy
I don't even think
dies
he
from
says how much money he earns every year from Whites in Luxembourg.
He does
Shelley.
say that.
He
puts
does?
That, you bet your life he
Oh,
does.
now he does?
That
Okay.
well, he has to, because that's on the form you have to fill
Okay.
out.
So now I'm going to go look. Thank you.
Yeah, go check it out.
It's
I'm
all
sure he made at
online.
least $10,000.
At least, you know. So,
a day.
you know, and you were talking about the assembly. You served 6 terms.
10 years, five full
five
terms.
terms.
5 full terms.
And you were you defeated? Did you leave on your own or?
Well, no, my Republican friends went after me because I was a little
So-called
too liberal for them. You know, the
And who succeeded you?
Conservative Party never liked me at all.
Never got their line?
And I think my religion may be one of the reasons. No, I
Really?
didn't get their line.
Okay.
But what happened was, and this is a very interesting story, in those days, if a person came in looking for a job, and you can't say to that person, you're a woman, I'm not hiring you. You're a man, I'm not hiring you. But if the person is gay, you could say, you're gay, I'm not hiring you. That was not part of the law. And every year they would put in a bill that would change this, and I would kill it, believe it or not. And the codes committee, it never got out of committee because of me. And I said, I do not want to condone a lifestyle. I am opposed to any discrimination of any kind whatsoever, and I am. I said, but I don't want to condone a lifestyle. So then my 8th year, 9th year, whatever it was, they came up with the bill. They didn't say Proskin on the bill head. Proskin, read this, you dummy. It says, this bill is not intended to condone a lifestyle. And I got the thing passed in the assembly. I got it out of committee, and they went nuts. In fact, my own leadership in my own party. So they primaried me, and yes.
With Bob Prentice?
Yes.
Okay.
And people to this day say if they had known that, you know, they would have voted for me. But, you know, nobody expects that to happen.
Right.
They primaried me, and I got beat in the primary. And by the way, I was offered to run as a Democrat, and I was told I could win if I did, but my wife and I talked about it, and I couldn't do it. I had so many people who worked back in late 60s and little old ladies and everything. My wife says, you know, it would kill them if something like that happened. So I didn't, and maybe I'm glad I didn't, but...
So in '95, you went back to private practice?
Oh, yeah. I was in private practice in the assembly, though.
Exactly, yes, but I'm just saying.
And I wouldn't tell my clients either. Nobody asked for it.
But you didn't want to go to some other elected office, you gave up elected office in
No, at that
95.
point, yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes.
So-
I mean, I did judge work, yeah, appointed judge. In fact, now I'm doing hearings for the state controller as a judge. And very, very interesting job, and I enjoy doing that. And
Well, that's good.
It's fun kind of thing.
So there was a slogan, I think, from 1995 that said, "Where there's a will, there's a way." Was
There's
there a slogan
Was that me?
Prentice gave
I
against
don't
you or
know.
something?
I
or-
don't know what he said.
Okay.
They accused me
Yeah.
of doing criminal things. There was a nasty and I think I say stupidly now. I didn't go back after them. I just said, which I should have, because I probably would have beaten them if I had done that.
You never took a per diem,
No,
Right.
I'm here.
right? And you never put in for gas. But Hoblock did. Mike Hoblock, when he was in the Senate, that's what defeated him.
Yeah, I know.
You know, that was a shame because, then, he wanted this, he went from county executive to the state
Yeah.
Senate. I mean, the Republicans shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, it's just.
Well, listen, all I know is that I'm looking back at life. I said, well, I did a lot of nice things, had a lot
Yes.
of fun. I was doing judicial hearing officer work, and then the state, in its wisdom 3 years ago, decided they didn't want to pay us. But you could do it for nothing, they said. It's our state of New York, right? And we all said something that I wouldn't say out loud too much. I said, no, we'll do it for nothing, thank you. But that's when the comptroller, who spent 10 years in the assembly with me,
Right.
suggested I contact their office. And I truly enjoyed working with the people. And
You must have a great Rolodex.
or something like
You
that.
must have a great Rolodex. I just wanted to, you also were president of Congregation Beth Abraham-Jacob
That's
during
correct.
the 60s also? Or
Yeah, we
70s?
see that's basically, before then, I think, or maybe even after then.
Who was the rabbi there?
Rabbi Bomser was, no, it was before Bomser. Oh, don't ask me.
Okay.
I forgot.
Gewerk or Gewertz? Was it Rabbi? Okay.
No.
Well,
Blinder.
Blinder?
Blinder.
Rabbi
Blinder was there.
Aaron
Yeah.
Blinder, okay.
And it was very, very good. And I was there, and then ultimately, believe it or not, we left the Orthodox synagogue and we went to Ohav Shalom.
Why?
Do you want me to truth why?
Yeah.
And I would say it. And a guy who was a wonderful, wonderful guy turns out to be the rabbi there. My daughter was getting married, and at the time the shul was not being a shul. It was totally being renovated. It was terrible. And she was getting married at the Shaker Ridge Country Club. And so I asked the rabbi, I said, Rabbi, would you do it? Months and months in advance. I said, it's not kosher. If you could just do the ceremony, I really want you to do it, right? He said yes, and 2 weeks before the wedding, he came in and says to me, Judge, I can't do the wedding. 2 weeks before the wedding, and I said, Rabbi, why didn't you? I was a little upset. And I resigned from the shul at that point.
Yeah, why?
I said,
Why did he say he couldn't?
because it wasn't kosher there, and and I understand, but you should have told me when I asked him. I had to fly a
this
rabbi
is
in
Rabbi-
from Cincinnati, put him in a hotel, make the room kosher and everything, which we did.
Yeah.
And it was crazy.
And this was
crazy.
Rabbi Blinder who said this to you?
No, Bomser.
Oh,
I happen to like him now. He knew he did wrong after this. Very interesting. Every time we had, like my granddaughter who's now 14, she had open heart surgery when she was 3. She had a hole in her heart. Who's there waiting with us? Rabbi Bomser. Every time something came up, he told people, and it got back to me, how he made a big mistake. I mean, it's okay not to do it. I would have understood that. But you don't wait 2 weeks before the wedding, my goodness gracious.
so you were president under Rabbi Blinder,
I think it was Blinder, yeah.
and then your daughter got married under when Rabbi Bomser was
Bomser
here.
was there, yeah.
Okay, so there was a set, but you were always, so while you were president, you were
I don't know
still
whether
a
Blinder
member.
was the rabbi or not. I don't recall who,
Okay.
very frankly.
But we had, so this was on Hackett Boulevard, the synagogue was on Hackett Boulevard?
But that's when they moved up to Hackett, right. It was
Right,
originally was
66
downtown on
Hackett,
the
yeah.
corner of Franklin and Herkimer Street.
Right, Herkimer Street, sure,
Yeah.
So,
We
okay,
have to
so,
wrap it up.
yeah. so
Franklin and Ferry, I should say. I'm sorry.
You should say, that's the Beth Jacob Synagogue.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's still there. So, anyway, it's, you know,
We're out of
I just
time.
love the history, and
Yeah,
you
we
have a
can-
lot of it. And
Oh, I enjoyed being
You
with
have
you.
a diverse life over here, from the history of a Jewish community, and I don't know if anybody we've had over 125 interviews. I don't know
Rabbi,
if anybody has.
I'm very proud of my heritage and background, and I speak up, and I just am proud to be Jewish, proud to be brought up where I am, proud of my friends, and
I'm
proud of
proud
people
to
like
have you amongst, I consider you my friend, so.
Thank you very
I'm
much,
proud
Mark.
of that, so thank
All
you.
right, thank you very
Rabbi.
much, Ms.
Thank
Proskin,
you.
for being
Thank
on
you,
Jewish
guys.
View, and continue your good work that you're doing, and with good health.
I'll try to stay out of trouble too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very
You
nice,
too.
Thank you.